and welcome to another episode of Justified Joy Podcast. I'm your host, and my name is Joanne Cox. On this podcast, it's all about different topics, but they're all here to edify each and every listener. It doesn't matter your age group, ethnic group, because sometimes we're talking about spirituality, sometimes we're talking about physical, emotional, mental, all well-being. And that is what it takes in all areas for us to become a whole, balanced person. But today's topic is about momentum. And I have a special guest with me. And our special guest is right here from Fayetteville, North Carolina, from the University of the Community College, I should say, Fayetteville Tech Community College. Her name is Jennifer Bledsole. She's an instructor and coordinator of the psychology department. Welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you so much, Joanne, for having me here. I feel so very honored.
Yes. And is there anything that you would like the viewers to know about you that I didn't put in the introduction?
Well, I've been teaching at Fayetteville Tech for 23 years full-time. Absolutely a blessing. That I just love helping people. And the fact that your podcast is all about edification, that's my gift from God, I believe, is to edify people. And I've been doing it. I taught it for about 16 years at Fayetteville State, part-time. And then I've been here 23 years, and I taught a little all over before that. So it's just an honor and a blessing to be able to touch people's lives.
It is, and that is what this is all about. And my dream is for this podcast to get larger and larger. And when I say that, I mean so that we have a viewing audience that we're reaching all over the universe, because of the fact that I communicate a lot with Methodist and with Fayetteville State with the international students, and they just take it and run with it, and they go all the way home, which is on their land. So let's get started with our topic today, which is momentum. Now, Jennifer, in your words, what is the value of momentum?
Well, I think about a rock coming down a hill. If you take a rock and put it at the top of the hill,
yes,
and it gets just a barely little touch, it is going to start going, and it is going to be hard to stop. And it is going to pick up momentum and pick up momentum and pick up momentum till it gets to the very end of its road. And we are very much like rocks when it comes to the things that we want to accomplish in our lives. Okay. The value is that if you don't ever push the rock, it's not going anywhere.
That's true.
And that's very much like we are. If we don't either have someone to help us to give that little push or to push ourselves, if we don't get started, we will never get to the end of the road.
And that's what it's all about. And that's a very good definition for momentum. I'm very visual, and I could picture that rock from the top just rolling down. And I want to put myself in that category of just picking up that momentum right there and making things happen. Now, without that being said, how do you create that momentum in our work lives versus our everyday life away from work?
So I'd like to start by saying I think that sometimes we don't feel worthy of the momentum. We sometimes feel like, why me? Who am I? You know, I mean, so many people in the Bible said that when God called them, like, who am I? But I think the first thing we have to start with is to really start to see our value as a person. If you don't see value in you, then how are you going to even feel like you're worthy of that momentum? And I know that sounds a little strange, but rock's not questioning its momentum. But I'm not sure if any of the people in our audience, or if you have ever had an experience where you're in a situation and you're like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe I'm here. Like this is really happening to me. And I experienced that when I took a group of students to Paris and London. I'm just a little old country girl from North Carolina. and I'm standing in Paris and London, and I've come on this trip for free, by the way, because I'm leading students, and I'm looking at the Eiffel Tower sparkling, because it does that on every hour after it turns dark. And I'm like, like I'm here.
Mhm.
And I think that sometimes for some people, that's the fullest that we can be in our lives is when we get that ability to understand that there's a purpose. So I think purpose helps us with momentum. And feeling good about yourself and knowing that you have a purpose, I think is like the start of that momentum.
Yes, yes, yes. And what I'm hearing you say is that we have a tendency to create our own stumbling blocks. And in that, you're questioning yourself, why me? But the answer is, why not you?
Yes.
Yes, and we're all these tiny pieces of a jigsaw puzzle that makes up this grand scheme of life.
Yes.
And so why not be in that position?
Yes.
And I know a lot of times we're trying to find out how to execute on that job.
Yes.
So can you dig in a little bit deeper, as in how do you create that momentum when you're just sitting at your desk and working and knowing there has to be a plan of action?
Right. I definitely want to speak to that and go back and touch on home life as well. But
Yeah.
let's think about that. Now, I work at a community college, and all of our job descriptions are very plain when we get a job. I have to teach classes. I have to keep a Blackboard site up. I have to have office hours. I have to do divisional work. So it's very plain at what you see. Here is where I think we can start momentum. That's the bare minimum when you look at that description.
Yeah.
Are you a bare minimum person? I'm not.
I'm not.
And I don't think, I know you're not. And I don't think successful people have the mentality of bare minimum. So you look at that. So back, I'm not sure on years when this started, but about 20 years ago, I said to my dean, I said, why don't we have a psychology department? And he said, well, maybe that's something you need to look into. Now, a lot of people would have said, oh, that's not my job description. I'm not getting paid extra for that. I'm going to leave that alone because I'm going to be doing more work for the same amount of money. Money cannot be your motivator. The ultimate motivator is your vision and your purpose. It is not money. Money is a necessity to live, and it will come with your vision. But so you've got to start with, what do I see that's missing wherever you're at, and I want to add that. Now, of course, we're only one person and we can only do so much. So we have to be realistic. That's important. And we have to give ourselves self-care time and downtime and those kind of things. But I started that. And after I got that running pretty good, I was like, we need an outlet for people to share their trials and tribulations and how they've come through them. So I started a speaker series. So then after I got that going pretty good, I was like, we don't have a support group for students here. So and then I did a women's empowerment now that's been going on for 3 years. I mean, it's like, I just go, what else can we do? What else can we do? And my purpose and focus and my dream is to see students cared for. I have pushed that agenda here. We're at Fayetteville Tech now. We have a food pantry. We have a clothing closet. We have so many things for our students now, where when I started here 23 years ago, and it wasn't all just my dream, there were plenty of other people that came in on this. But when I started 23 years ago, it was, we need people to go to school and get educated. And it wasn't looking at the whole person. So I think in work, to start momentum, look at what whoever your client is.
Yes.
What would the client want that's not here? What can I do above and beyond that? And sometimes it doesn't take an extreme amount of effort. It just takes forethought and planning. What can I do so that my clients are students, but so that my clients feel cared for, so they feel, empowered to do what their dreams are.
Yes.
And now going back to at home, home is harder, I think, for most people, to be honest with you, because a lot of people are on this upward trajectory at work. I want to get a better position, and I want, those kind of things. And it's motivated very externally by finances, because of course, usually the better you do, the more money you make. But at home, there's different motivators. So, for example, for married couples, and I had, in the past, I did a lot of marriage and family therapy before I started teaching psychology. And it's like we start taking for granted our homes, our families, our children. I mean, we start taking all these things for granted. And so to up the momentum there, it has to be a purposeful thing that's only going to lead to intrinsic motivation, which is the happiness that you get from it being well done. And I think that's a different ball of wax. It's a different issue and a different problem, because like I said, I think most people, they know, if I don't do, I've got to do at least this much at work, so I keep my job. And then if they want to be successful, they're going to go over and above that. But at home, it's like, so many times I sat in a counseling room with couples, and they would say, I'm like, well, when was the last time you guys went out alone? And they would say, well, before the kids were born, and the kids are 12.
Yes.
You haven't been purposeful about your relationship. You haven't been purposeful there. I mean, how many honey-do lists, or how long, or how many honey-do lists at the house, because it's easy to put off. You're the manager and CEO of that job. And so you can put it off when you don't feel good, or when you feel like I'd rather watch television, or those kind of things. It's harder to get yourself on a schedule at home and get that momentum for a successful life. There are successful people in the work world that their lives are a mess at home, because they have momentum at work. That momentum does not translate into home. And I'll be honest with you, I think our biggest missionary field, our biggest field of influence is at home. And yet we don't put in the work to that we do our jobs or our career.
That's really huge. And I want to go back and sort of seal that up as to how I heard that. And I was listening to you, and everything sort of connects to the other one. If there is a need and you feel it, then you will attract others. And when you do that, you have that snowball effect, and everybody joined in, but you're that one person that created this, and now it becomes huge. And some people won't tackle that because they know that it's going to be huge.
Yes.
Yes, but it's so many intricate parts to it. But what we have to understand with a passion from our hearts is that every time we lead in another direction, we are leading as well as being a great follower.
Yes.
And it's a very structured thing when you're at work. And that is what I see different. There's a structure, there's that blueprint already there for you. Yes. And you can do more and add to it. But at home, you don't get those applause, accolades. And we were brought up from a young age, as in, you've got to make the A's, you've got to get the ribbons, you've got to get this. And we are self-taught as into that appreciation. It's almost like in relationships, as you pointed out before, in marriages. Well, what do people do? They put all the money and all the big grandeur things in the wedding, but no one ever talked about the stair steps throughout the 5, the 10, the 15, and the 20 years. Yes. So we have to rewrite that. Yes. And I never knew that this topic of momentum was going to take us with this conversation to spread out this far. And when you see me looking down, I am literally taking notes, okay? I believe the viewers need to be taking notes. And the great part about taping a podcast is that you can always listen to it again. But of course, I'm going to have Jennifer on because I have that snowball effect mentality. And I hear 4 or 5 podcasts coming from this right here.
Oh,
Now,
that's wonderful.
I'm going to keep talking about the balance between work and home life, because you told me how to create it and you told me what it is. But when we get that momentum and we start to feel good in it, what is it that's going to make us sustain this?
And I think it goes back to just what you said, the snowball effect. We have a choice of who is in our life. And sometimes with our families, especially, and the negative Nancy's that like to whisper in our ears, you can't do that, that's not possible. I think that we feel like if they're in our family or maybe even in our workplaces, that we have to listen to them and we can't get away from them. And I have always told people you can respectfully decline to speak more than a minute or two to even a parent if that parent is weighing you down and disrespecting you. We've always been taught to respect our parents, but when they're disrespecting the children, then how do you handle that? And so I think it's the snowball effect. You surround yourself with people who are motivators. You surround yourself with people that can see your vision. That like this vision of your podcast of edifying people. When you told me about it, I thought, oh my gosh, I want to be a part of that. And I felt so honored. I'm thinking, I want to do this to every person that I can talk to, whether I'm in the grocery store or in line at a clothing store, it doesn't matter. I want to edify, because the better you do, Joanne, the better I'll do, and the better we'll all do. So I think it's in keeping the momentum. Now, let's go back to that rock again. Now that rock may slow down in certain places, right? Because the angle might not be just exactly the same. And I think those are the times that we are going to have to surround ourselves with those good people that can say, it is okay that it's a little slower now than it was in the beginning. It's okay. You're still making steps forward, and to have those people. And also, again, going back to what I said about feeling good about yourself. I know that I'm misquoting this, but there was a statement I've heard made a few times about Babe Ruth. You know, he had his first home run here in North Carolina, but they said he struck out more times than he hit home runs. So he had to put it all out on the field every time, and every time was not a home run.
That's right.
We can't leave things back in the dugout. We have to bring everything out on the field. And I think if we will do that, and even if we don't succeed, then we've learned a lesson on how to do something different next time. But we know that all of our effort, it either was not, something was misaligned, and we can go back and research and look. But I think surrounding ourselves with people and putting everything we have out there, even when it seems, you know, sometimes when we pray, it seems like God doesn't hear. And it's like, we know in our hearts he hears, like he is not to our prayers, but he's silent. And, you know, we've heard the statement that, I'm sure all of us have heard the statement that the teacher is quietest in the test.
Yes.
So we have to know that when it slows down, when some of that momentum slows down, that we grab a hold harder to our dream. We grab a hold of those people that have the same vision as us and want to support us. And we are there for others, because it's a beautiful relationship when you have these supports, that when one of them's getting a little bit weak, the other one can rise up.
Yes.
And we do that. We lift as we climb. And I'm a Fayetteville State grad. And when I was there, the quote was, lift as you climb. And I love that. I hate they changed it, but it's like, yes, as I'm going up, I'm going to take people with me. I'm not going to go by myself.
Yes.
It would be so lonely up there without someone else enjoying what we have worked hard together to get to.
Right, right. That's beautifully said, definitely. And just knowing that no matter what you're doing, whether it's work or whether it's home life, you're going to have challenges. And that's where your support team comes in.
Yes.
you know, and just having your back and just knowing that you are not in that spot at that time.
Right.
You know, we have peaks and valleys and we don't know when we're going to hit them.
Absolutely.
And that's, you know, and we have to get this mentality and understand that, you know, there are very few things. There's nothing really that you can do by yourself. You might think you're doing it, but you're literally living off maybe some resources,
Right.
which means that you're still including other people to help you on the mission.
Yes.
And the vision is the important part, because even though you don't see things happening, as you brought up our higher being, which for me is God, is that you don't have to see everything lining up, because it's the stuff that happens in the background. When you have that wonderful play and all the stars get to bow, but no one sees who's doing the curtains and the cleanup.
Right.
Come on now, you know, that they wouldn't have it without the background in the scenes that's taking place.
Absolutely.
You know?
And it's like you know, there's a scripture that I'm thinking of, and I'm terrible at quoting where they come from, but it says, if the ear wanted to be the hand, or that, you know, we all have our places to play. Like, you're the face of Justified Jewel podcast, which is an amazing avenue for you to reach people. You're the face of it. But without the guests that you have coming on that can stimulate the conversation, you know, I mean, it's so beautiful that I always think about the college here. I mean, this college is an amazing place. We have people that our grounds have won awards year after year after year. But we have a team of grounds people that work every day tirelessly on that. Our bathrooms, I have never been into our bathroom where it is not spotlessly cleaned. I don't have to worry about that when I come to work. And it's like everybody has this beautiful role to play. And my part is in the classroom, but there is so many people, just like you said, that are playing those roles behind. Would there be people in my classroom if the toilets were filthy? They would not want to come to school. You know, would there be people trying to get in the buildings if it was all overgrown and look, you know, horrible? No. We take pride in our buildings. We take pride in ourselves. And then, but that takes more than just one of us. It never can be a one person show. It just can't happen that way.
Yes. And can we get personal now and get into how is momentum affecting your life?
Whew. So I'm going to talk professional first.
Okay.
But I do have something to say about my personal life as well. But when it comes to momentum at work for me, every semester I have a 48-minute video that I allow my students to watch if they want to. They're not made to. It is my life story. And I actually missed one significant thing. I can't believe it. I don't want to re-record it. I always say there's one bad thing that happened that I didn't tell you about it. But because I had a house fire that I lost everything I owned in 1989. And for some reason that did not make it into my video. But after they watch it, inevitably one student at minimum from every class will message me and say, I was scared to take psychology. I was scared to go back to school. I didn't think I could do it. And then I watched your video. And I don't want to get teary-eyed because it does everything that we go through, all the bad stuff. Now, I'm not of the belief that everything happens for a reason. No. But I believe God can bring everything out of bad. He can bring good out of it. So when I know that my pain and the heartache that I've suffered in my life is going to make these 20 students hang in there and reach their dream, that pain was all worth it. Yes. That's my momentum every semester. And I'll have people come and they'll sit with me and they'll say, I just don't know if I can do it. But I knew I needed to talk to you. That's beautiful. It is so, I mean, because I don't feel worthy of that at all. I don't feel like, I mean, I connect with people from all different countries, all different ethnicities, all different backgrounds, all different religions. It doesn't matter, because
Mhm.
I feel like what I do is I say, I love you. And that is genuine. And I
Mhm.
want to help you. And because of that, the door gets open and people come in. And that's my motivation, because every semester I have at least one. Usually I have 5 to 10. And sometimes they won't stop coming by my door, and I don't care. Like, come on in. I'm not gonna get my work done. But it's the beauty of connection.
Mhm.
And the beauty of knowing that if I can help, even a good thing happens to me, if it can bless someone else, not just the tragedy in my life, but the good stuff. I mean, I graduated with my master's degree. The last thing I had to do was a comprehensive exam. It was 6 hours long, and it was 3 questions. And we had to write little books. And I went in, and that was the last thing standing in my way. And I had self-sabotaged. And if some of your viewers don't know what that is, it's where you really don't think you're going to succeed. So you want to set yourself up to have a reason to fail. So Fayetteville State gave us 6 months to study for this test. And they gave us, this is back in the days where we had books. They gave us all these reading materials that were like about 2 foot high. And they said, go study these. And I did, but I didn't get those materials until 4 months before the test. Again, I was self-sabotaging.
Mhm.
But when I was the only one that passed that exam that day, I praising God is not putting it lightly. I was like, I'm not even supposed to be here. So I got a little bit of imposter syndrome, but it hasn't stopped my momentum, because I know there's a purpose in my life. And that purpose, every time I see a student that I help, every time someone, and I have people that are PhDs, and I only have masters, PhDs, I have psychiatrists, and I have doctors out there. And I'm like, I played a little part in getting them to their dream. And there's nothing more beautiful or exciting or anything that makes me any happier than knowing that. So that's my momentum. That's my momentum.
Yes.
Professionally.
Yes.
And in my personal life, to be honest with you, it's very, very much the same thing. I'm kind of a one note piano. I go to a beautiful church filled with a lot of wonderful people, but I find people everywhere I go to encourage. And when I go somewhere, in fact, I went to go get, this is a crazy story, but I went to go get a cat stroller. I have 2 big cats. And I went to go get a cat stroller because I want to walk them around like everybody does their dogs. And now I've got to sell that particular cat stroller because it was not big enough. I have a 28-pound cat. But the lady that I met, her and her husband, literally, I went to buy a cat stroller in Jacksonville, North Carolina, and we stayed for 3 hours. And we just talked about, I encouraged her. She has a son that is an alcoholic, and I encouraged her, and we talked, and we just fellowshipped, and we got this bond instantly. And I live for that in my personal life. Just like I feel like I had such a connection with you.
Yes.
I'm like, that is the beauty of living, is to connect with people. And it's people that are, like you said, they're motivated, they have momentum in their life, they see visions of all these wonderful things they can do to make the world a better place. And that's all I want to do. So in my personal life, I'm very much the same way. God is my focus. And whenever I wonder about, am I good enough? Or in fact, I've got a ring on. My girlfriend, my birthday's coming up on July 2nd. And she gave me a ring that says I'm enough. And I said, I'm going to wear that like a wedding ring, because I am enough.
That's right.
And I'd like to share that. Hope that all of your listeners will know that they are enough. And if they have a vision, there's not a vision too big that their higher power can't help them get to it.
That's it. And that's what it's all about. And I said, when we were coming on, as I introduced the podcast, that we go into different type of segments, and they're like, I say it in a way that it's separated, where I say spirituality and mental and physical and emotional. But you know what? We've hit all of them.
Well, we are this being that's so complicated, aren't we? And it's just like the students here when we were only trying to get them educated. I said, if they're hungry, they're not going to come to class. If they're dealing with an abusive spouse, or if they're dealing with a sick parent, they're not going to come to class. We have got to support the whole person. And your podcast does that. It supports the whole person. And it's so important that, you know, it's if one area is not right, it's kind of like our bodies. Our bodies are so finely tuned. When you saw the puzzle earlier, I always see it like cogwheels. And I don't know if you've ever seen like a cogwheel, it's like a game, but they all kind of these all different sizes of wheels, and they all fit together. And when one turns, the other turns.
Yes.
And that's how I see us as people. And so it really is so important to me when I think about that you cannot talk about one area of our lives and not touch another area, because they're so interconnected. And that's important that we do that. We can talk about, for example, how to be financially responsible and be successful financially. But I know a lot of people that are very wealthy that are very miserable.
Yes.
We don't want a lot of money with no happiness. And I love the scripture that says, you know, we have to be content in all things, whether we abound or are abased. And it's true happiness will not come to you just when you get the new car, get the new house, get the new job. You have to learn how to be happy where you are. And that goes back to, again, feeling good about who you are as an individual and a person.
Can you believe that our time is up?
Oh gosh.
I was going to
another hour.
I was going to recap, but we do not have time. But what I want to say is, as you were talking, of course, I'm going to have you back, but I want to do one on self-sabotage. I want to do one on intentional living, alignment, self-mastery, and we can go on, but we're going to separate all of those. And I know that there are going to be people that will be coming to your class. Again, I want to say that this is Jennifer Bledsole, and she is over at Fayetteville Tech Community College, and we're here in Fayetteville, North Carolina. I'm Joanne Cox with Justified Jewel Podcast, and I can be found at www.justifiedjewel.com. And I am a life coach as well, and you can find all of those. This is a recording, and you can find it on all your social media platforms. I look forward to seeing all of you. And Jennifer, thank you. And I can't wait for you to come back.
Me too. Thank you so much, Joanne.
Thank you. And I know that you're going to enjoy this. And please look at it as many times as necessary so that you can take notes. Again, thank you for joining us.